Exposed. The touching moment my daughter-in-law slapped me at her wedding. What happened next was. Ruth stood at the entrance of the quaint church, heart racing, as guests settled into their seats. The air buzzed with laughter and chatter. She could hardly believe her son Jake was about to marry Emily, the whirlwind of light and vitality who had swept into his life. They were everything Ruth was not: privileged, lively, and seemingly destined for the American dream. But Ruth felt a nagging twinge in her chest. Would her boy find true happiness among the affluent? Would he remember the values she had fought so hard to instill? As the music began, there was a subtle rattle in her core. The wedding was beautiful yet refined, each detail a stark contrast to the simple life they led. Jake, in a crisp suit, stood at the altar radiating joy. Ruth's heart tightened. Memories of endless nights working at the diner, pouring coffee for weary travelers, played through her mind. She sacrificed everything for this day. Did it mean anything to Jake if they came from different worlds? During the vows, as they spoke promises of everlasting love, Ruth couldn't help but feel the weight of her background. Simple truths mean the most, she said lightly, hoping to bring warmth to the exchange. But to Emily, the words twisted into something sharp. In a flash she struck Ruth, a slap echoing through the church like a thunderclap, leaving the air thick with disbelief. Silence hovered. Stunned faces turned towards the scene, a mom standing in shock, and a bride torn between familial expectations and her heart. Ruth's world fractured in that instant. The joy of the day evaporated, leaving behind the bitter taste of conflict. Community murmurs rippled through the crowd. Who does she think she is? They whispered, their expressions a mixture of horror and sympathy for the dedicated mother. As the festivities faded into an awkward silence, Ruth felt the memory of her humble upbringing flash before her eyes. And somehow, amidst the heavy silence, a few community members stepped forward, rallying around her. "You've worked hard and raised a good boy," a waitress from the diner said. Her comforting words fanned the embers of Ruth's spirit, reigniting the pride she felt for her sacrifices. This moment wasn't just about the clash of two worlds. It demonstrated the strength and resilience of small-town life, reminding her she was never alone. Days after the wedding, the fallout became a somber reality. Ruth and Emily were both adrift in a sea of misunderstanding. Deep-rooted emotions, stripped bare after the wedding, churned within them. Describing painful moments of their pasts, neither realized how similar their experiences were, every struggle and sacrifice intertwined like threads in a fraying tapestry. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as the tension thickened, Jake found himself in a troubling situation that forced Ruth and Emily to confront their differences head-on. The stakes rose, as they both understood that love was never easy. It required bridging vast gaps. With a mother's resolve and a newfound understanding, Ruth took a step forward, ready to protect her family at all costs. Little did they know, this act would lead both women down an unexpected path, one that demanded a reevaluation of who they were and what they meant to each other. Would they be able to rise above their struggles and redefine what family really meant? The question loomed heavy, leaving the future uncertain. The days after the wedding dragged on, like a heavy fog refusing to lift. Ruth found herself staring out the window of her small home, the view of the street muted and dull. The slap had rattled her to her core. She felt bruised, not just on her cheek but deep within her heart. She knew she had to reach out to Emily to mend the fray, but the thought of approaching her felt like climbing a steep hill. Emily was on her own journey of self-discovery. In the days since the wedding, she had locked herself away in the couple's apartment, curling into a ball of frustration and shame. The slap had been a reaction, a desperate attempt to assert her place among the expectations that weighed heavily on her, expectations that demanded perfection and graceful acceptance from every side. The voices in her head swirled around the disappointment of the day, taunting her for acting out. Could she really blend in with Ruth's world? Jake was caught in the middle, a rope pulled taut between two women who loved him deeply. He sensed the rift growing, felt the anxiety hanging in the air when he called Emily, hoping for some normalcy. "Hey, can we talk? It's been a rough few days." But he was met with silence, the phone dropping like a heavy stone into a deep well. Ruth decided it was time. Time to confront her fears and bridge the chasm. She strapped on her worn shoes, the very same ones she had put on for endless morning shifts at the diner. They hit the pavement like a familiar rhythm, each step echoing her resolve. Entering the bustling coffee shop where Emily often sought refuge, Ruth hesitated at the door. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, almost comforting yet so foreign at this moment. As she scanned the room, her eyes landed on Emily hunched over a corner table, her long hair falling over her face like a curtain shielding her from the world. Taking a deep breath, Ruth approached. "Emily," she began, her voice quivering just slightly. The young woman looked up, surprise etched on her face, quickly followed by a shadow of defensiveness. "Why are you here?" Emily's tone was sharp yet fragile, as if any wrong word might break her. "I came to talk," Ruth replied softly, searching her daughter-in-law's hazel eyes for a glimmer of understanding. "I know things got out of hand, but I believe we can work through this." "Work through what?" Emily snapped, the hurt spilling over fresh like a raw wound. "You don't understand me, and you never will." Ruth felt the sting of her words but pressed on. "You're right. I don't know everything you've been through, but I want to understand. I care about Jake, and more than that, I care about you. We're family." Emily's defenses faltered a little. She blinked back a sting of tears. Was family something they could truly be? Nothing in the world felt more fragile than that moment. The air saturated with the weight of their histories. Ruth took a step closer, ready to share her own pain, her own sacrifices. Just as Emily was opening up ever so slightly, her phone buzzed on the table. One look from Emily told Ruth it was Jake. "Do I answer?" Emily looked torn, caught between wanting to resolve their clash and the constant pull of the man they both loved. "It's your call," Ruth said softly, "but I think it's time we both started answering what matters most." The phone continued ringing, and both women had a choice to make. Would they let the world pull them apart further, or find strength in collaboration? With a tentative yet hopeful glance at each other, they waited for the call to end, knowing the future of their families and perhaps their own hearts rested in this crucial moment. What would happen next was uncertain, but it had the potential to redefine everything. The phone rang on, its insistent tone cutting through the thick silence that hung between them. Each ring was like a heartbeat, full of urgency and unresolved tension. Emily stared at the screen, her brows knitted together, the flicker of indecision dancing in her eyes. "Emily, you know this isn't just about Jake," Ruth said, trying to keep her voice firm, yet gentle. "It's about us too. If he's going to be part of our lives, we need to be on the same page together." Emily inhaled sharply, biting her lip. Ruth could see the struggle within her. The lines of anger and sadness etched across her face blurred into a portrait of distress. I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice dropping. "You're supposed to just accept him, and I can't even accept myself right now." Ruth felt a crack in her own heart, realizing the weight of those words. Emily wasn't just battling with her feelings for Ruth's son, but also with her own identity in a world that seemed so demanding and judgmental. "Come sit with me," Ruth urged, gesturing to the empty chair across the table. Taking a hesitant step, Emily finally settled down, creating a small but significant bridge between them. "Why do you care?" Emily asked, her brows still furrowed. "You could just tell me to leave Jake. That would make things easier for everyone." "Easier isn't always better," Ruth replied, her heart racing. "You are family now. I might not always understand you, but I want to. I want to know the person my son loves." There was a vulnerability in Emily now, like a seed beginning to break through the earth. "What if I never fit in?" she asked, her voice just above a whisper. Ruth could feel the lump rising in her throat, the words escaping her lips before she could think. "We all struggle to fit in. Even I do. There was a time I thought I wasn't enough too. But we can redefine what family means. It doesn't have to be perfect, just genuine." Emily's eyes softened slightly, vulnerability intertwining with a cautious hope. "Do you really think that's possible?" Ruth nodded. "I do. We both just need to take that first step together." As if on cue, Emily's phone stopped ringing, the abrupt silence enveloping them again. This time it felt different, almost hopeful. They exchanged a glance, a fragile understanding that, perhaps, they were both more alike than they had realized, but before either of them could speak, a shadow cast itself over their table. Jake stood there, his face a blend of hope and anxiety. "I've been looking for you, Emily," he said breathlessly, concern etched into his features. "What are you doing here?" She returned, her voice laced with surprise. "I just wanted to talk to both of you," he said. Glancing between them as if trying to read their unspoken conversation, Ruth's heart raced at the sight of him. This was the moment they had both been waiting for, the moment when they would all have to confront their truths. "Jake, I was just," Ruth started, but Jake raised a hand, stepping further into their space. "I know what happened at the wedding shook us all, but maybe we can find a way to make this work." But the question hung in the air. Could they really? The tension was palpable, blending uncertainty and a flicker of hope. It was a moment that could change everything, but only time would tell if it would pull them closer or push them further apart. As Jake took a seat beside Emily, Ruth braced herself for the conversation ahead. Would they come to understand each other? Or would this be yet another chapter of misunderstanding? All that was certain was that nothing would ever be the same again. Would they rise to the occasion, or would everything crumble beneath their feet? Jake's gaze darted between the two women, reading the tension wrapping around them like a heavy fog. He took a deep breath. "Can we just start fresh? I don't want our relationship defined by what happened before." Emily shifted slightly in her chair, her posture tightening as the weight of the moment sunk in. "It'd be nice if we could just erase all of it, Jake," she replied softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But the truth is, I don't even know who I am in this situation." Ruth felt an ache in her chest, resonating with Emily's words. "You're not alone in this," she said, her voice breaking the tension. "Jake and I spent years trying to figure out our own dynamics. Family isn't about perfection. It's about support." "I don't want to be a burden," Emily said, her voice trembling. "You both have your lives. I feel like I'm intruding." "You're not intruding," Jake insisted, reaching out to take her hand. "You're more like a piece we never knew we were missing. We all have baggage, Emily, but we can carry it together." A moment of silence hung between them. Ruth saw the flicker of uncertainty in Emily's eyes giving way to a glimmer of trust. Jake's thumb brushed over her knuckles, a comforting gesture that seemed to almost draw a line between their past fears and a hopeful future. "Let us just talk about it," then Ruth said, buoyed by the shift in Emily's demeanor. "What happened at the wedding was tough, and we can't pretend it didn't affect us. But we can't get past it unless we face it." Emily's breath caught as she considered Ruth's words. "I felt cornered," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to react and I was terrified of what everyone else would think. But it's not just about them, it's about me feeling like I belong." "I get it," Ruth responded gently. "We can find a way to figure this out together. What do you need from us, Emily? What would help you feel safer?" Emily looked at Jake, then back at Ruth. "I don't want to feel stuck in the middle. I just want acceptance. I want to know that I can be myself around you both without fear." Ruth nodded, the weight of Emily's words deepening the bond they shared. "You can be yourself with us. We will make this work together no matter how imperfect it may seem." Jake squeezed Emily's hand tighter. "We won't give up on you. You don't have to handle this alone anymore." The warmth in the air felt different now, full of promise and possibility. But just as Emily opened her mouth to respond, the door swung open, interrupting the fragile moment. Alan, the family patriarch, stepped in, eyes wide. "Is everything okay in here?" he asked, concern etched across his face. The room tensed again as the three exchanged rapid glances. Emily's face paled. The safety of their moment suddenly felt threatened. Yeah, we're fine," Jake assured, though the tremor in his voice suggested otherwise. Ruth's heart raced. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Would Alan's arrival unravel the progress they had made? Or could they hold on to this newfound hope? The path ahead was unclear, and the looming shadow of family expectations felt ready to pounce. But as they faced this new challenge, at least they were in it together. Would they be able to navigate the complexities of family dynamics? Or would old fears resurface, threatening to tear them apart again? Alan surveyed the room, his brows furrowed. The concern on his face wasn't just for the immediate situation. It was also tinged with the weight of years of family history. Jake could feel the tension thicken, almost suffocating. The familiar squabble of family dynamics loomed ahead. "What's going on?" Alan continued, his voice steadying. "I could hear a hint of worry in your voices." Ruth exchanged a glance with Jake, a silent conversation. Emily, still holding Jake's hand, flinched slightly, unsure of how to respond. The moment they had forged together now felt fragile, like a house of cards at risk of toppling. Jake cleared his throat. "We were just talking about some things that happened at the wedding." Alan's expression darkened as he stepped further into the room. "That was quite an event, wasn't it? A lot of tension, a lot of feelings. Maybe we should have a family meeting to discuss everything?" Emily's stomach twisted at the suggestion. "A family meeting? Is that really what we need?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I don't want to turn this into something worse." "Maybe we do," Alan replied, his tone now more serious. He turned to Ruth, his intensity sharpening. "We can't ignore that something happened. If Emily is feeling unsettled, we need to address it. Everyone in the family deserves to feel safe." Ruth stepped forward, a protective instinct surging within her. "Alan, Emily isn't just everyone. She's my daughter-in-law," Alan interjected, cutting her off. "And that comes with responsibilities. If there's unresolved tension, it affects all of us. We can't just sweep it under the rug." The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second amplifying the tension. Emily pulled her hand from Jake's, feeling isolated again. "I thought we were trying to make progress," she whispered, vulnerability creeping into her voice. Ruth felt the urge to defend her, to shield Emily from the old family pattern she hoped to escape. "We are," she said, voice firm. "But it shouldn't be at the expense of Emily's feelings. She needs support, not scrutiny." "I'm just trying to keep the family unity intact," Alan replied, the edge in his voice softening slightly as he turned to Emily. "I want you to feel at home in this family, and that means we need to confront these issues. It might be uncomfortable, but it's necessary." Jake stepped closer to Emily, sensing her retreat into herself. "You're not just a member of this family, Em. You're family. You deserve respect and understanding." "We all do," he said, his voice rising slightly with conviction. Alan hesitated, the sharpness in his demeanor cracking just a bit. "I want us to sort this out without causing more pain, that's all. I never meant for it to come off hostile." "Then let's do this differently," Ruth suggested, keenly aware that the path back from hurt was a teamwork effort. "We can speak openly, share honestly without fear of backlash." Emily looked between Jake and Ruth, feeling the stir of hope against the backdrop of uncertainty. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll talk. But I don't want to be ganged up on like during the wedding." It was overwhelming. A breath hung in the air as they all waited for the confession that would follow. This moment held power. The chance to forgive or let old grievances fester was precariously balanced. Would they break barriers or set new traps? Emily's heart raced with the weight of her decision. She felt ready, yet terrified, ready to lay it all on the table, but afraid of the outcome as the silence deepened. A storm of thoughts and possibilities swirled among them. Emily took a deep breath, ready to unveil her truth. What she didn't expect was how her revelation could change everything. Would they be able to confront their own fears together? Or would old wounds simply crack open to bleed once more? Emily's pulse quickened as she felt the weight of their gazes upon her, like a spotlight illuminating every crack in her facade. It was time to peel back the layers, to confront the feelings she had buried deep. She swallowed hard, a lump forming in her throat as she glanced at Jake. His eyes shone with unwavering support, anchoring her amidst the storm. "Okay," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "At the wedding things were different than they should have been. I felt so out of place." She hesitated, the memories swirling around her. "And when my aunt started criticizing the arrangements in front of everyone, I just snapped. Came out of nowhere like an explosion." She remembered the heat rising in her cheeks, the way stomach churned with embarrassment and frustration. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm usually the one who keeps my cool, who manages everything. But that day was just too much. I felt so alone." Ruth's expression softened, and she reached out, wanting to comfort her. "You're not alone in this, Emily. We all want to support you. But we need to understand where you're coming from. You've been holding so much in." Alan's brow furrowed in concern. It's not just about the wedding, is it? There's more underneath. His tone was softer now, like a parent trying to draw out a shy child. Taking a deep breath, Emily pressed on. I've always felt like I'm fighting to fit in. You all have these deep, long-standing connections. I'm trying to blend into a picture that was already painted. My family isn't perfect either, and sometimes I just wish I could be as carefree as you all seem to be. Alan nodded slowly, absorbing her words. That makes sense, really. You're adjusting to this family dynamic, and it can be overwhelming. We forget sometimes that everyone has their own struggle. Jake moved closer to her, his presence grounding. It's okay to let it out. You're part of this family, and we can face whatever is happening together. His warm hand found hers once again. His grip reassuring. She looked at him, her heart swelling. But what if it tears us apart? She searched his face for answers, for hope that this might not backfire. Ruth intervened gently. We can't control everything, Emily. What we can control is how we respond to each other. If we had been more open, maybe there wouldn't have been those tensions leading up to the wedding. It's our responsibility to create a safe space where we can be ourselves. Alan cleared his throat, but his voice rang out with unexpected firmness. Let us have a reset. Let us promise to listen to each other. If we stop denying the problems, we might discover the strength in facing them head-on. A flicker of relief crossed over Emily's features. It was a glimmer of hope, a light tugging her more toward acceptance than fear. I don't want to be seen as the outsider anymore. I want to embrace all of you. Ruth smiled, her eyes shimmering with emotion. Then let us start again. As family. As they spoke, a shift occurred in the room. The heaviness lessened. It was like freeing a butterfly from a cocoon, the tough exterior making way for something beautiful. For the first time, the future didn't seem clouded by fear. Instead, it opened up like a new chapter waiting to be written. But then, just as they were catching their breath, the phone rang sharply, slicing through the atmosphere. The sudden noise startled them all, and a shadow crossed Alan's face when he answered. What? No, that can't be right. The room held its breath. What was happening now? Would this new turn of events test the fragile understanding they had just begun to forge? Alan's face paled as he continued to listen. The tension thickened in the room, a palpable weight that pressed down on everyone's shoulders. Emily could almost hear her own heart thudding, matching the fear that danced in the air. What do you mean she's missing? He said, his voice rising slightly. He glanced at Emily and the others, his eyes darting with a mixture of confusion and dread. Alan leaned against the counter, gripping the phone tightly. Jake's hand squeezed Emily's, grounding her. She could feel fear bubbling up inside her, a tight knot in her stomach that twisted and churned. Alan's voice lowered, more urgent now. Is she okay? Did you call the police? The words hung like thunderclouds, ready to unleash a storm. Emily's breath hitched. Who was missing? Why was this happening now when they had just begun to open up? Ruth stood, her face an unreadable mask but her eyes wide with concern. Alan, who? He finally turned his gaze back to them, his expression grave. It's my sister. They can't find her. She was supposed to be at the event venue but she never showed up. The air crackled with tension. Emily felt her heart race, the warmth of understanding they had shared moments before now replaced by a chilling uncertainty. Why didn't you say anything before? Jake's voice broke through the silence, tinged with worry. Do you think something happened? Alan shook his head, his worry morphing into a steadied resolve. I don't know. But I need to go. I need to find her. He moved briskly toward the door, determination etched into every line of his face. Wait! Emily called out, panic rising in her throat. I'm coming with you. No, Alan said firmly, stopping in his tracks. You stay here. I'll call you once I know more. But what if you need help? We can't just sit here. Emily countered, urgency lacing her words. No. You need to stay with the others, he insisted, his voice sharp but layered with concern. Just like that, Alan disappeared through the door, leaving a gaping void behind him. The room felt suddenly smaller, as if the walls were closing in. Ruth sank into a chair, placing her hands over her face. This can't be happening, she whispered. Not today. After everything, Emily felt her heart sink with the chaos of the moment. All those words of understanding, of family, now felt like threads unraveling. What would happen to their newfound promise amidst the fear? Jake pulled Emily into a strong embrace, her head resting against his shoulder, tears threatening to spill. What do we do now? She whispered, her voice trembling. We wait, he said softly, breathing deeply. And we stay connected. That's all we can do. But how long could they wait? Each minute felt like an eternity, the uncertainty gnawing at her insides. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the images racing through her mind. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table, an alert that jolted her heart. She grabbed it, breath hitching in her throat. The message flashed across the screen. Emergency alert. Missing person. Have you seen her? Emily's heart raced as she read the details. Was this the sister Alan was talking about? Jake, she called out, her voice edged with renewed urgency. I think, but before she could finish, another message pinged, and its content sent a cold shiver down her spine. They weren't just dealing with family issues anymore. They were now facing a struggle that could shatter their bonds completely. What if their past conflicts had only dug deeper fissures? What if the cracks they thought they were mending now widened, threatening to consume them all? As Emily's eyes met Jake's, they both knew this wasn't just about finding Alan's sister. This was the moment that could define them. Would they rise to the occasion? Or would this crisis tear their fragile family apart once more? Emily's fingers shook as she tapped at the screen, reading the alert one more time. The name listed was undeniably Alan's sister. The confirmation sent a ripple of dread through her. Her mind raced with questions she hardly wanted to face. What could have happened to her? Why did it have to be today? Emily? Jake's voice pulled her back from the spiral of fear. She turned to him, horror evident in her eyes. What are we going to do? I don't know, Emily admitted, swallowing hard. The knot in her stomach twisted tighter. I just can't sit here. We have to help. Ruth lifted her face, her tear-stained cheeks speaking volumes. What can we do from here? We're not even sure where she is. Maybe we could check the venue, Jake suggested hesitantly. Someone might have seen her. Emily's heart raced at the thought. But we don't have any information. How can we just, waiting here isn't going to change anything? He was pacing now, his frustration bubbling over. We need to move now. Ruth nodded slowly, finally standing up. Yes, right. If we want to help him, we have to try. We can't let him go through this alone. Emily took a deep breath, the urgency settling in her chest like a live wire. Then let's go. We need to stick together. In a flurry of movement, they gathered their belongings and rushed out the door, Emily leading the way. The crisp air hit them like a cold slap, awakening her senses and heightening the urgency they felt. As they approached the venue, the streets felt eerily empty, every tick of the clock echoing loudly in her ears. What do we do once we get there? Jake asked, his mind racing as fast as hers. We start asking questions, Emily replied, trying to muster confidence. We can talk to anyone who might know something. Maybe someone at the registration table, or Ruth started but was abruptly cut off by a series of car horns and the slamming of doors in the distance. They reached the event venue and found a small group of people outside, some looking anxious, others just confused. Emily's heart sank again. They were all here for the same reason, and she could feel the collective fear hanging thick in the air. Over there. Ruth pointed toward the registration booth. Let us go. They walked over, breathless and shaky, the weight of their mission pressing on them. Excuse me. Emily approached the attendant, her voice a mix of pleading and determination. Have you seen Ellen's sister? She's gone missing. The attendant's eyes widened slightly, and Emily watched as she processed the gravity of their words. I am not sure, she stammered, looking frazzled. But we've had some people report strange behavior near the entrance. You might want to check there. Strange behavior? Jake echoed, a nervous energy pulsing through him. What do you mean? Like someone lurking? But I didn't think much of it. The attendant trailed off, her gaze now distant. Emily moved closer. We need to know everything. Can you tell us what you saw? Before the attendant could respond, the alert on Emily's phone buzzed again. She hesitated, then quickly pulled it out, her breath catching. The screen lit up with a new message. Possible sighting near Maple Park. If you have any information, please call immediately. This was it. This was their next lead. But a terrifying question loomed: what if they found her, and it was too late? Jake squeezed her hand tighter, his worry spilling over into determination. We have to go now. As they raced toward the exit, Emily felt a new sense of urgency propel them. But the shadows of doubt lingered. What awaited them? Would they find Alan's sister? Or would they uncover a truth far darker than they feared? Stay close, Emily managed, her voice steady despite the tempest within. With every step, they delved deeper into the unknown. And with it, the resilient thread of hope began to tug at her heart. But as they turned a corner, Emily's breath caught in her throat. There, standing on the edge of the park, was a familiar figure, a figure she never expected to see again. Emily's heart raced as she stepped closer, her eyes widening in disbelief. The figure was unmistakable. It was Sarah, Alan's sister, looking lost and disoriented, her hair in disarray and eyes filled with tears. "Sarah," Emily called, almost stumbling over the words in her rush. The relief and fear mixed in her voice spilled out into the air. Sarah turned, her expression shifting from confusion to recognition. "Emily?" Her voice was fragile, as if it might break under the weight of the moment. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Emily reached out, pulling her into a tight embrace. She could feel the tremors in Sarah's body, the warmth radiating from her, but also the panic entangled with it. I don't know. I got separated from everyone. I was looking for Alan." Her words tumbled out in a flurry, her breath hitching, as if the act of speaking required more strength than she had. Jake and Ruth joined them, sharing concerned glances. Ruth knelt down to look at Sarah in the eyes. "You're safe now, but what happened?" "I was in the crowd and then I felt this heaviness in the air. It was like I was being watched." Sarah's voice trailed off and she shivered, as though recalling something too dark to bear. "Watched?" Jake probed gently, the tension palpable in his voice. "There was this guy. He kept moving around, standing too close," Sarah explained, her cheeks turning pink with embarrassment, but also fear. "I panicked and I didn't know what to do." Emily's heart sank again. "Why didn't you call us?" "I thought I could find my way back." Sarah's resolve crumbled, and Emily felt a surge of protectiveness. "Listen, we're here now," Emily said, squeezing her shoulder gently. "But we need to get out of here. We can't let whoever that was find you again." Just as she spoke, a distant shout echoed through the park. It was hard to make out the words, but the urgency in the voice sent a chill racing down Emily's spine. "Come on, let us move," Jake urged, linking arms with Sarah while Emily took the lead. They hurried through the park, the adrenaline fueling their pace, each step an escape from the unseen threat that loomed in the background. As they reached the other side, Emily glanced back, her chest tight. "Did you see where he went?" "No, I didn't want to look. I was too scared," Sarah replied, her voice shaky. Ruth wrapped her arm around Sarah's shoulders, trying to offer comfort, but the atmosphere felt heavy with uncertainty. "Let us get somewhere safe," Emily said, her mind racing. They needed to regroup and figure out how to protect Sarah and, ultimately, Alan, who was likely frantic over his sister's disappearance. As they walked, the conversation shifted to more immediate concerns. "We should call Alan," Ruth suggested. "Right? But he might be going through a lot," Emily replied, uncertain if now was the best time. "Maybe we should wait a bit?" "No. He deserves to know she's found," Jake insisted, a firm line in his jaw. Taking a deep breath, Emily fished her phone from her pocket. She swiped to find Alan's contact, feeling the weight of anxiety settle heavily in her gut. But just as she was about to press the call button, her eyes darted to the entrance of the park. A figure stood there, partially obscured, and she could feel a familiar chill creep down her spine. "Who's that?" Emily whispered, her heart pounding. The figure shifted, as if sensing their gaze. "Do you think they're?" Ruth started, but Emily cut her off. "No more waiting. We need to move." With urgency they turned to leave, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As they hurried away, the figure stepped into the light, revealing a face she wished she could forget. "Why are you here?" Emily's heart dropped as she recognized him, and in that moment every instinct screamed for her to run, but she had to know why he was there. What did he want? And was Alan in even more danger than they thought? Emily's breath caught as the figure emerged from the shadows. Her instincts screamed for her to flee, but she couldn't ignore the electric tension filling the air. This could be the missing piece of the puzzle. The man stood tall, his features masked by an eerily calm demeanor, yet Emily felt the chaos bubbling beneath the surface. "Why are you here?" she demanded, clenching her fists. What do you want? The man flashed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just trying to make sure everyone is accounted for, he said, his voice slick like oil. You must be Emily Allen's new family. His gaze slid over to Ruth and Jake, the quiver of uncertainty in their bodies palpable. Stay away from us, Jake warned, stepping slightly ahead of Emily, his protective instincts kicking in. Each word dripped with defiance, but Emily could see the underlying fear reflected in his eyes. Oh, I'm harmless most of the time, the man chuckled, rolling his shoulders as if shrugging off the tension. But then again, everyone has their limits. As horror dawned on Emily, she grasped Sarah's arm tighter. This isn't funny. We need to get out. The figure's gaze darkened as he made a step closer. You think you can just vanish into thin air? This isn't going to end well for any of us if you keep running. You can't hide from the truth. Truth? Ruth interjected, anger rising to match the fear. You're scaring us. What are you really after? His smile faltered. I don't need to scare you. The game is already in play. I just want to know who's really ready to play. I've had enough of your games. Emily's voice shook but steadied with purpose. We found Sarah. We're leaving and you're not going to stop us. The man tilted his head, assessing them carefully. What a brave little family you are. But, are you really prepared for what that means? Because once you start digging, you might uncover things better left buried. Just then the distant blare of sirens echoed, growing louder. The figure's demeanor shifted. Anxiety surfaced in his carefully polished expression. Seems like I've lingered long enough, he said, stepping backward into shadow again. Don't you dare run. Jake shouted, lunging forward, but it was too late. The man vanished like the wisp of smoke he had become, leaving only the echo of his taunts behind. While shock rippled through them, Emily felt the weight of worsening anxiety push back against the initial relief of finding Sarah. The sirens drew nearer, tearing through the placated atmosphere, reminding them that everything was still precarious. Let us not stay here, Ruth urged, taking charge and pulling Sarah closer. We need to find Alan. He must be worried sick. Emily nodded, trying to hold on to the flicker of strength. Holding Sarah's hand, they hurried toward the car park with every footfall. The urgency returned, the connection of family binding them together, resolute against impending darkness. We'll make sure Alan knows Sarah is safe, Jake reassured, eyes glimmering with determination. He'll be so relieved. This time we won't let fear tear us apart. As they reached the car, Emily's heart raced, not just from fear, but from a strange sense of unity blossoming against their earlier misunderstandings. They had fought together, defied the shadows threatening to shatter their family, and found the strength to rise. Emily? Sarah asked, glancing nervously as they climbed into the vehicle. Are we really okay? Emily offered Sarah a sincere look, igniting a sense of peace amid the chaos. You're safe, Sarah. Together we'll navigate whatever comes next. Just as they started the engine, Emily felt a rush. Their moment of vulnerability had turned a corner. Each one of them was linked now in ways they hadn't been before. Facing fears had carved out a bond stronger than any confrontation could break. As the car rolled out of the park and into the stretch of twilight road, a tentative sense of normalcy wrapped around them, thick and sincere. Alan's work as a protector made every flutter of worry worth it. Their family foundation was now awakening. As they drove into the distance, the sirens faded behind them, but the echo of the man's voice lingered in her mind. You can't hide from the truth. Now more than ever, they would uncover the layers of their family, rebuild trust, and face whatever lay ahead, not just for themselves, but for each other. Hope surged in Emily's chest. The road would be bumpy, but with family, she could steer into the unknown. Alan was waiting for them. There was still so much to face, but they were ready. This was theirs to claim, a story reborn together. If you loved this transformative ending, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a huge difference. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this powerful conclusion. I want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Remember, real fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.